Hi, I'm Jaden. This is my third speech for Comm235. I'm continuing in my argument that we should significantly decrease the amount of military aid sent to the state of Israel. I want to start off by clearing up what I believe is a misconception in my video that you mentioned a couple times in yours. I do not believe that we should completely sever all funding and ties to the state of Israel. I think that we do receive some benefits from the state of Israel, and I do believe that we should maintain that relationship on some standard. Um, it is the extent that we are supporting this relationship and the extent of the funding that is the problem, not the relationship itself or the existence of the relationship itself. This is the only country, I believe I mentioned this, the only country that receives the extent and the caliber of this funding. No other country receives $3.8 billion to $12.5 billion every single year, so that we receive minimal benefits and some programs, some advantages with nuclear energy that we could receive from other countries as well, especially in Europe. Um, and you bring up, besides the point, you bring up a fantastic point in your speech where you talk about how Israel does not need the US to continue in its rampage and to continue murdering Palestinians, my language obviously, and to continue in its ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians and of the Lebanese and so forth and Syrians. Um, you say that they could do this anyways. They don't need our funding. Then why keep giving them money? If they don't need it anyways, then why don't we just stop giving them as much money? Why don't we reduce it to a couple hundred million? Why don't we reduce it to 1 billion? Why does it have to be $3.8 billion, especially when we know there are so many other programs that are just as beneficial, if not more, that we could put this funding towards? Also, I would argue that that's not even true. That's a fictitious reality to be living in. According to Al Jazeera, or sorry, to NPR, a reporter describes how every single time, without the US's support, every single time they fire a bullet, or they damage a weapon, or they use a weapon that can't be reused, all they will be thinking is that is one less bullet, one less gun, one less weapon that they can use in the future. You're forgetting the issue of sustainability. Maybe right now, with what they have, they could continue for another year or so, but this would significantly decrease and radically shift um, when they realize that they will not have this continuing source of funding and military aid if the US were to reduce that funding. I think they would shift in priority. I think they would advocate significantly more for peace. You talk about how we need to keep giving them this money so that we have some say in how they go about ceasefires or bringing about peace in the Middle East. I don't think that this is true. I don't think that giving them money will incentivize them to advocate for peace. I believe that giving them money and giving them more money every single year, whether we kind of shift back or not, as you mentioned, will not provide them any sort of, again, incentive to advocate for a ceasefire, advocate for peace in the Middle East. Not to mention, I think even if they were to find other channels of support, they would charge them for this military for this weaponry. Sorry, it is ridiculous that Israel is getting all of our weapons and all of these things, and it isn't costing them a dime. That is unheard of for any other allyship or any other sort of country, especially to this level. Um, Not to mention, the only reason why Israel is recognized as a legitimate state by other countries in the area is because of the U.S. Because we recognize them as a legitimate state, we need to understand that Israel is seen as an extension of the U.S. And you verify this in your own speech or in your own video where you believe that Israel is fighting for Western values and for Western benefit. This is not a good thing. We shouldn't have an entire country that is an extension of us. And the only reason, not only reason, sorry, one of the biggest reasons why there is even war in the Middle East, as described by Al Jazeera, is because of actions of Israel, because of their own choices, and because of the way that they instigate and the way that they say no to certain treaties. I believe that they wouldn't be fighting terrorist groups like Hezbollah or Hamas if they were to stop with occupations, stop with their own terrorism. Just because the U.S. doesn't recognize them as the idea of as terrorists doesn't make them not terrorists. To quote Brian Hudson from commondreams.org, he states, when the U.S. recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital in 2017, Palestinians withdrew from recognitions, plunging the peace of process into a deadlock. The policy has strained America's relations with Arab countries and opened the doors for China and Russia to increase their influence within that region. That is a clear example of how Israel has continued to instigate and promote this cycle of violence that we keep seeing in the Middle East. We have so much conflict with other Arab countries or other countries in the Middle East because of Israel, because of the consequences of Israel, because other countries view Israel as a direct connection or subset of America. Without Israel, without such a strong allyship, at least, we would have so much less conflict in the Middle East. We would have so much less sort of infighting and conflict and violence if Israel were to have less of a connection to us. And I believe that we can not sever, but reduce that connection or mitigate that connection or relationship by reducing this funding a significant amount. Also, the programs you mentioned cannot be enough of a reason to continue backing the support of what the Amnesty International and Council of Foreign Relations views as Israel's numerous war crimes. Israel has violated the Leahy trial, it has violated the Geneva Convention. The programs that you talk about for like national security, which I don't believe Israel has that much of a say in, for one thing, those cannot be enough of a reason or justification for backing and supporting the human rights violations that we are seeing on the daily. You act as though the Palestinian issue is just this minor thing because there's so much other stuff going on. It's not. And if we were to stop supporting Israel in the way that we are, we would see so much more peace. We would see so much less threat of terrorist groups attacking America because they wouldn't see America as a connection to Israel any longer. Thank you.